next presentation is the creating unspoken unique advantages for startups. So we have some additional advantages we can learn, which are unspoken. We are honored to have YP Chen be the next presenter. YP is CEO and owner of Avidian Technologies, and he has over 20 years of experience working in USA, Greater China, Japan, and South Korea. He has management, entrepreneurship, and investment experience in running companies that range from startups to be a CEO of an US publicly listed company. So we are very happy and honored to have YP to give us the next talk. So YP, would you take away from here?
Yeah. Great. Thank you. Sorry for the technical challenge because I do not use academia. I do not use team that much. And hopefully we're okay going from this point onward. Yes. Chris has given you a great example of the startup and some of the advantage, disadvantage, and his personal experience. It's fascinating for me to watch Chris in the past 8 years, how he started from one person now to really put two world-class product into International Space Station and Princeton University and Institute of Marine Science. So today I'm going to really talk to you, share my perspective from using a lot of personal experience and what I've gone through in the past 20, 30 years working with different company. I think I have a benefit of being around the block for a few times. So to start with, I would like to make two statements, and without going through it, hopefully you'll find the answer yourself. Over the year, I think that I realized entrepreneurship is not for everybody. Startup is very easy to do, but extremely difficult to be successful. And I want you to think about these two statements, and hopefully you will find out whatever you are good person to be an entrepreneur now. And then to start with, I want to share with you a chart from CB Insight about the top reason why startup fail. The top three one is there's a product that nobody need. Second thing, run out of cash, as James and Chris mentioned before. A lot of time the company run out of cash. And third thing is not the right team. Not the right team. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to really, my talk next 30 minutes is really focus on some of these critical issues, but a lot of startup founder, especially from a technical background, does not really pay a lot of attention. By the way, I was a pretty hot shot engineer for about 6 years, working at IBM. First, actually, I was working at TRW design, experimental satellite for NASA, and then I worked at IBM for 6 years, design a mainframe on a general computing system. So over the year, I realized that the technical thing was necessarily startup, but they are not necessarily the most critical part for many of the company. So to start with a motivation. I have a personal situation in 1996. As I mentioned before, I worked at TRW, IBM, and Honeywell for a total of 9 years, right? As an engineer and then M&A and acquisition in China and the US. By that time, I have an MBA and MSCE from Columbia University. I live in Hong Kong with my wife, who also has an MBA from Columbia University. We didn't have a kid yet. So the decision that faced me was like this. One, I could move to Shanghai to run the division of a multinational head the China operation. That was in 1996. My package would be about $250,000. So that's option number one. Option number two was that I'm going to start my own startup with $3,000 of startup capital. And then to supplement our income, I was a consultant to a company, my previous employee making only $40,000 a year. So the question I tend to ask people a lot is today we don't have the time to go into it, is just what would you do if you were me, right? What decision would you make? Now, today we don't have time to ask a lot of questions, so I will just tell the answer. I choose option 2. I choose option 2. Looking back, that was really a good decision. And for my motivation for me to start the company was similar to what is explained here. The reason for me to start the company, number one, was really to control my own future. I really like the challenge of doing myself, and intellectual stimulation and challenge has been my primary driver for me over the past 30, 40 years. Of course, I like to be my own boss. We have some idea, but the idea was actually pretty good. Was a patented technology from the U.S. We licensed it, but then we were not the person who come with the original idea. So the top reason for me then 1996 to give up a $250,000 job was really a top 3 thing. Money was not even top on my list, you know. So there's something before you start something, you got to understand why do you want to start your own business. Because for a lot of people looking for money, I have a bad news for you. 84% of the people start a business in the US and only become wealthy by the time they are 50 or 60. Because the case of Mark Zuckerberg become a billionaire when he was 23 years old is 1 out of a billion chance. The question you need to ask yourself is, are you one of the 1 out of a billion person that can make it work like Zuckerberg? If not, you got to think about it, because most of the case, money is actual byproducts of solving problem and creating value for other people, for the society. So second issue that a lot of stuff felt was our product with no market need. Because as a technical retraining founder, we tend to dream about product we like instead of what customer need. The Chinese phrase is 百门都贵, right? And then also, Chris mentioned about before, a lot of people tend to chase the wave. If you change the wave, but you do not, it's okay you change the wave as long as you have competitive advantage. One of the mistakes we made was in 2008. A few friends and I started this business based on the idea of another founder. He was spending a lot of time in Hollywood. Those days, social media was not that hit. Then we thought, oh, maybe there's a way we could create a platform that allow people to share information, share challenge. It was a good idea, but realistically, I was running it. I realized that I did not really know the business that well. And as a result, they combined with other issues, the business was not able to take off. So in the end of the day, the lesson I learned was that we did not have what it takes to differentiate ourselves and make it viable. So that was the mistake. And the third issue that I want to talk about is run out of cash. Chris mentioned that a couple of times. I was definitely have a lot of discussion with him before. The company ran out of cash. Even I was a CEO of a public listed company in Florida when I moved back to the US 2003 and 2007. And as a public listed company, a few times, we almost did not have money to pay the payload that's coming next week. So what I did was I made a deal with Best Buy and they said, you write me money in 24 hours, I give you 2% discount. That's how I was able to make the payload to our employees. So as you know, a lot of startups, they might have a bright future, but when something happens, they run out of cash, they have to shut down. I see many of those cases in my life, even in China, Hong Kong, Japan, South Korea, and the US. When I went to business school at Columbia, when the professor told us that cash is king, I did not truly understood what it meant until I run this public listed company in single mission. And that's how important it is for cash flow. And the common mistake people make is cash and cash flow is people tend to focus on money, especially startup. Because I mentioned before, a lot of people use making money as a primary driver for startup. They likely use OPM, other people's money. They focus on raising money first. In 95, I was in Hong Kong with a friend of mine from Columbia Business School. He was a director of EDS. He said, he and I were talking about, he said, YP, I want to start my own business. I said, Andrew, what stopped you from starting your business? He said, I need to raise $10 million before I quit my job. I told him, I said, good luck. He never able to start his own business because he always depend on OPM, other people's money. So I think the common mistake people make, especially entrepreneurs make, is focus on money rather than creating value. As Chris mentioned before, he created value for solving the problem for NASA, solving the problem for Princeton and in the Institute of Brain Science. As a result, the money will come after you create value for customers. And one of the interesting things is that Chris talked about it, and I see this in action myself through this day, is that as a startup, the best startup actually does not need a lot of cash from investor. This day, as investor too, I just bought a company, a software company about 2 years ago. This day, I don't invest anything unless I get my cash back in about a year. I'm really aggressive in terms of my investment, of course. Some investors will pay me for 10 or 15 years, 20 years, 5 years. But for me, anything as a benchmark, if anything more than a cash year before I get my cash back, I don't touch it. As a result, my investment has done really well. And then to able to scale up the business and really get business under control, and we need management system, management know-how, right? So I kind of look around and basically I said, okay, I need to get a team that could cover all these key drivers. So for technology, for product, I recruit a guy who's only 30. This guy is brilliant. And he went to UW, undergraduate computer science, paid himself through Columbia University for a master's degree. He gets MIT, media-led management, MIT, free of charge. So he was Microsoft, Google. And this is the guy unique is, but I realized this guy is something who is very good at solving any problem you give to him, but do not ask him to manage a day-to-day repetitive stuff. So, but he is the guy who helped me to create a lot of, I said, this is a problem, I'm going to solve it. He solved it. Then I need someone who is very good with understand our product, come with a new product, and manage the customer relationship. And then I need a guy who knows how to do the sales. So therefore, I myself as a CEO. So basically, we have a team of 4 people. I made everybody shareholder. And then we run our business. We cover each other. We help to complement each other's skill set. So that's how I looked at the key driver, build our team at 2019. So, but what happened if you do not have the ideal team? I think this view from Don Rumsfeld. He actually a very good quote. Politically, I don't agree with him, but I like his quote. He said that, especially in Iraq War, he said, you go to war with the army you have, not the army you might want or wish to have a later time. I have a similar story when I was running a publicity company in Florida. The analogy I use is like this. Imagine you have to go from Miami to New York City. Ideally, you take a flight, pay $300 or $400, and 3 hours later, you're in New York City, right? But what happens if you have no money? The only option you have to walk north 10 miles, there's a bicycle. So you walk 10 miles, get the bicycle first. And then you have to ride the bicycle for 100 miles north to get a motorcycle. And then after riding a motorcycle for about 200 miles, there's an automobile there. And then you take an automobile drive to Atlanta. And then from Atlanta, you have money to buy airplane. Running startup is very similar to what Rumsfeld said, what my example shows. You only have resources in a certain time. You just suck it up, go with what you got at the time until you accumulate more resources. That is critical for startup. But for a lot of people coming from Microsoft, Amazon.com, and Google, you have all the resources you want. You're always waiting for a perfect opportunity before you start. But that's not how startup works. And as part of the team, one thing Chris talked about is why culture is so important, right? I want to give you 2 examples. I have a personal experience with this thing. I was a consultant at a company, and actually this company, that was about almost 10 years ago. They had $300 million revenue, publicly listed, but they have been established about 10 years. What's interesting to me was that 4 founders and all 5 original employees still in the company after 10 years. Think about what it takes to keep original 9 people in the same company for 10 years. Think about their culture. Think about their bond, right? My personal example, in 1999, I went to work for a venture capital group, technology whole company for one of the wealthy guy in Hong Kong. And during our talk, he promised to give me X amount of option, right? But I joined. He does not want to honor the deal. So I left after a year. What's interesting, he made the same promise to other people. And then most people left and his business collapsed within about a year or 2. So part was timing, part was he did not really honor his promise and build a culture that people would love. And I used to work at IBM. I was benefiting from IBM because I paid for my master's degree and also MBA at Columbia University. But during at the time when Lou Gerstner came in 1992, he later on, of course, he turned around IBM. He have a very successful turnaround, and this is how he defined culture at IBM. He said that when I come to see in my time at IBM, culture is not just one aspect of the game, it is the game. You think about a company like IBM and Goldman Sachs. At the end of the day, IBM and Goldman Sachs or Google or Facebook or Microsoft is actually no more than a collection of smart people or not smart people, collection of people to creating value. So the question is that how do you use this kind of thing to apply to your startup, right? And I just said it to one of my partners yesterday. They said, you look at our company. Our company is not too big. You include contractor and our part-time employee. We have less than 20 people. But what's interesting is we have a collection of what I call a misfit. We have a collection of misfit. Each one, they're brilliant. Each one, they're very capable. But together, the question, how do you get a bunch of misfit together and make something work? That is the arc of a startup, right? Because in the Chinese phrase, it's 同床异梦. There's a lot of things we said, same dream, different bed. That's what happened to his last startup. And how do you build a culture? Realistically, it's really, in the end of the day, culture consists of physical culture. What's your value? What's your culture? What's your integrity? And the greed is motivating people. Ambitious and paranoia. Intel CEO Andy Grove said paranoia will survive. It's really how do you take all these things individual thing, combine a shared value, shared culture, and they create a sustainable corporate culture, create teamwork, and have to perform it. If not, it's going to be pretty difficult for you to build a sustainable business, right? Okay, the fifth issue I have is that what kind of structure you have, because most people don't talk about this kind of, it's awkward to talk about it. I'm going to give you two examples. Example number one, I have been using my own kind of investment in a business advisory service. And the idea I want is I want to operate without any burden. I don't want any interference with anybody, and I also have the right skill set to do all the things I want. So I want to keep this for long term. As a result, I do not want any shareholder. So that's one type of business. The second type of business is, I mentioned before, I bought a software company. It's a turnaround situation. I need to fix it really fast in order to save it, right? And I could not do everything by myself. I need to depend on others to operate, to create value. And be friendly, I don't mind to turn around in a few years, I sell it. And I could control 100% of the company very cheaply. I could buy it cheaply, but instead, I structure it differently. So you see these two different scenarios. One is that I don't want anybody to tell me what to do. I'm happy with myself, one-man band. On the other end of the spectrum is I need help to create value, save the company. So how do you structure it? For my one-man band company, my wife and I own 100%. We're no outside shareholder. I don't have to answer to anybody, right, except my wife. So she's not into the business. She's going to say MBA, right? So in another way, I create in such a way, I create 100% of the business. I only end up 45% of the business because I want other people have even more skin in the game, so they can work hard, help to save this company, and also help to push the company. We did save the company for sure. Before I went in, we were losing money like crazy, and then first year we made money, and second year we made money, and third year even under COVID-19. We were able to cut our costs by 40%, and we will be very profitable in 2000. We were profitable in 2020, and this year we're going to do better. So the idea is that how do we structure different business that cater to the need of that business? And at the end of the day, it's something we think about. The issue to consider about a structure is these are the key issues, but it's not right or wrong. But you got to think about it. Number one is how do structure control. How do you structure the ownership? And then how do you put the smart people together? Because the reality is smart people do not want to work for anybody for long term. So how do you make them be your partner, right? And do you want to focus on short term or long term? I mentioned about that. How do you structure the incentive in such a way that there's skin in the game for people? They come in, they not only work for you as employee, there's a partner, they can work hard to create value together. So of course, the idea is how do you create accountability, right? Because the owner is different mindset from employee. So finally, is how do you separate ownership and management? Like I tell all my partners, they said, look, you're a partner, you're a shareholder, but you can still get fired if you don't get performed. So I want you to think about this kind of issue, especially think about in the context. I learned this from Stanley Shi, the founder of Asia Computer, when I helped him to launch a product about 10 years ago, worked with him for 2 years, is he had this phrase actually I use since then, it's 利他而利己. That means how do you benefit others before benefit yourself? Think about the context of that. If you hopefully you find the right people, you benefit other people, then other people will create more value for you and you benefit from the long term. So that's kind of mindset we need to create. James, how much time do I have? before the last point?
I think you have about 5 minutes.
Okay, so the 5 minutes quickly go through the execution. I remember 2000. I was running, become a partner in this IT company in Hong Kong. We are looking for money. Then I was talking to the investor. The investor asked myself, "What's your strength?" I said, "I'm really good at strategy and think about big picture." Then he next question now, who does the execution? And then I said, I let other people do it. The problem here is that he was looking for an entrepreneur who good at strategy and big picture, and at the same time get execution done. As a result, he did not give us money. Right? So what's execution? Actually, I worked at Honeywell when Larry Bassett was the CEO. You know, he defined execution very, very clearly. If anybody even though this book is about almost 20 years old, I highly recommend any entrepreneur read about this book, because this will talk about execution. Execution is key part of the business, right? To me, what's execution in 3 parts. One is that it's really part of your business strategy, integrate your business strategy. Second thing is a major part of a business leader or a startup founder. And the third part is that it must be a core element of your organization, because execution, in the day, I always said this thing for about 20, 30 years. Strategy is 10%, execution is 90%. Because Chris showed you before, right? A bad idea with good execution, you still go somewhere. A good idea with good execution would give you 1,000 times a multiplier, right? If a great idea, great execution, get you a million times effect. That's what really about business. That's what's about for startup. So as a summary, right? I wanted you think about these couple issues. One is, why do you want to start a startup? Second thing is there demand for your products? Do you have cash to last? Because a lot of people, don't have the cash. Fourth thing is, do you have the right team? Fifth thing is that, do you structure your company in such a way, depending on the situation, to really carry out your plan and give enough incentive so other people to help you to create a bigger company, a better mousetrap? And finally, can you execute? Can you get things done? So at the end of the day, I don't care your startup, your business, or your employee. It's really how do you create value and have a long-term sustainability, because last startup founder, they found really exciting, after 6 months, everybody burn out, right? So the key thing is realistically ask yourself, do you really have the competitive advantage to create value to meet the need in a marketplace? That is what boils down to. I want that's all the question I have. And thank you very much, James and CIE for the platform.
Well, yeah, thank you very much, YP. I think, all those key points on unspoken points are very important, especially how to balance between the motivation, the market need, cash, right team, the incentive and execution. I think it's highly important. Also, I guess another takeaway message is that maybe not everybody should do startup, but yep. I guess if you are interested in continue learning, adaptation, I think you can try. And based on my own experience, when we start into a new business, we totally misunderstood how challenged the business is. Then yep. From there, we're starting to learn and then make changes. And fortunately, we didn't run out of money. So that's kind of go back to what Chris says. Survival is the key. If you couldn't survive, then nothing else you could do. But yeah, again, this is very, very interesting talk. Before we head to the Q&A, I would like, maybe, I think if YP could exit your screen sharing.